Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dram Tracks, the series where we bring in guests, ask them to give us some songs and stories related to those songs. Now, typically, that is one guest and 10 songs and 10 stories. But for those of you who may not be tracking, all the restaurant news happening everywhere, there were some big events in the restaurant world. One of which was very near and dear to me and many of my friends, which is that the NoMad New York City has closed for at least the foreseeable future. Hopefully, to come back again, newer and greater than ever. And for folks that aren't familiar with any of the nomads, there's New York, LA, Las Vegas, and then recently London. It has just been one of the greatest, I think, places for cocktails, wine, food, hospitality that maybe has ever been. And that was, the work of vision and the work of an incredible team of people time and time again. So to help kind of celebrate what it has been, I've asked a number of my friends and colleagues, most of whom I've worked with, all of whom I know well, to join us today to share a song and a little bit about themselves and the story from the Nomad. And so the first person that we have today is my good friend and former colleague, sommelier Graham Vickers. Graham, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And, once you agreed, I knew we were going to start off with you because you were the first person I really met at the Nomad. You were my server. It must have been 7 years ago.
Oh man, totally.
Yeah. And I remember it because just this was way back. And the interaction I remember was I ordered an old fashioned from you, and just the interaction has stayed with me almost verbatim, and it was so perfect, and it was such an amazing experience that I wanted to then go work at that place. So first of all, thank you for that as well.
Always my pleasure to serve a handsome man like yourself a delicious cocktail.
Right back at you. The beard club has to stick together.
True.
So I was hoping, before we get into the music and the story, can you tell us a little bit about just kind of your background, kind of what led you to the Nomad and what you did there?
Yeah, totally. What led me there was, like so many of my colleagues there, just pretty much total happenstance. I had just been changing careers. Before that, I was teaching high school in Brooklyn, and my roommate was in the industry, and he knew someone who worked there. I interviewed actually to be a bartender, but after the interview, they're like, "Oh, how would you like to be a kitchen server?" And I was like, "Okay, great."
I'm familiar with that experience. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I ended up staying there for about 6 years. I had a pretty long tenure, and by the time I left, I was one of the sommeliers and also running the beer program. Which was pretty tight. But I got to wear a lot of really interesting hats there, and that was one of the best parts about that place for me is, you really had a lot of, if you stuck around, they really moved you around wherever you wanted to go. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I remember one of my other greatest Graham memories was that you have not only, so we share the background in education, but a background that we don't share is that you are trained also as a meteorologist.
That's true. Yeah.
And you gave a seminar on New World versus Old World wines where you brought in that weather background, and it was mind blowing. So, thank you for that as well.
That's so sweet. Always happy to talk about the weather.
Yes, especially these days as things are getting nicer and nicer. So to get into the spirit of what we're doing, the tracks and the Dram Tracks, your track is Kaput by Destroyer, and I have to say, based on the name of the band, I thought it was gonna, and also the band. Oh, sorry, can we plug your band for a second before we go?
Oh, always got to plug my band. Yeah. My band is named Safety. We just put out a new album on Jetson Flotsam Records called Greetings from the Sunshine State. And until just now, we just ended our pre-order, but we raised a bunch of money for the Florida Rights Restorative Coalition, donated 100% of our sales to that. So up the punks.
Yeah, up the punks, man. That's awesome. Glad to hear all of that. And so based on, I think I've seen you guys at least once. It was very loud and it was very intense and it was very good. And when the band was named Destroyer, I was like, oh, this might be like one of the first intros to like that type of music for our audience. But it turns out it's not. And so here is a selection of Kaput by Destroyer. I may have queued this up a little early. It's a vibe, right?
Oh yeah.
Wasting your days, chasing some girls, alright, chasing cocaine to the back rooms of the world all night.
And I should add, by the way, I can see our future guests in the bar below us. I'm not sure if you can, but I'm seeing some reminiscences on some faces. So we'll get to those in a minute. I certainly know that both of them have probably heard the song a number of times. So
no doubt.
Yeah, can you please share the background there?
Absolutely. Okay, so I think probably like the most impressionable time for me at the Nomad was when we opened up the Nomad bar right next door, kind of like that extension of the bar space. And when I first started there, that song was on the playlist. So I think shout out to my friend Rob for putting that on there. I had never heard of them, but Destroyer, he was one of the guys in the New Pornographers, along with Nico Case and AC Newman. And anyway, so I love that track. I thought it fit the space so well. And then later on, I was lucky enough to run the music for the entire Nomad for about a year. And I was like, I'm keeping that track on, like no matter what, like I'm bringing it back. I just thought the vibe was good. The lyrics were like all about sort of like debauchery, but it was like so smooth and polished and like had this nice groove. Like I thought it was very much like the Nomad bar's vibe, at least in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. No, it totally fits. And with that long sort of intro, right? It gets you like it gets you into the mood before, if like lyrics come in too soon or the song comes in too hard, it can break the moment rather than accentuate it, I feel like.
Totally. Yeah, I love that horn section too.
Yeah, that's a good one. I went for a run earlier today, which is one of the ways that I get to know the Dram tracks. And
that's tight.
This one was just like kind of going, yeah, I mean, I feel like you got to do something that 99% of the people at the Nomad wish they could have done, which is select the music. And it's probably best that 99% of us did not get that. Noah would have probably had just Nas greatest hits the entire time, which is an amazing, oeuvre, but not maybe not the Nomad vibe exactly. Yeah, that's amazing. And it also reminds me of one of the kind of the funnier moments, I thought, which was at one point, we made it known that the music was maybe repeating quite a bit. And so I guess it was Rob, maybe someone put together, or maybe it was Matt, someone put together like a playlist that was 72 hours. Mm-hmm. So theoretically it should only repeat the song twice in a week, except it was started every day at the same song. And so
I totally remember that. Oh my God. You could tell what time of night it was by what track was playing.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
But it was, it was still amazing. It's because the times when you could actually, the guests heard the music the whole time, but for us, it was like in the moments between things, it's like, because when you're in that zone, you're just flowing,
Absolutely. No, I mean, It was a place that you could tell that people cared about music. I mean, obviously, like the Rolling Stones was like a big part of the influence for that place. So, like the Rolling Stones or not, it's like they cared about music, the people who ran the Nomad. So it was really fun to get to put my little stamp on that, at least for a short amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, until I learned something new here, which happens all the time on Dram Tracks, which is that I didn't know that you actually ran the music for a while, and now I'm even more jealous. Not just of the beard and the band and the sommelier status, but just another feather in the cap.
We only had a few complaints. There was one table.
Wait, really?
There was one table that was very upset, but they were definitely of a older generation, so I didn't really feel, too bad about it.
Yeah, the Nomad was about the future, right?
That's right.
Yeah, right on. Well, Mr. Vickers, thank you for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we can have you back to do a full session in the future.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, I think it would be fun, and maybe get some of that tooth rattling sound on there, eventually.
Oh, for sure. It almost happened this time.
Right on. Well, there's always the future. So thank you so much, Graham. And by the way, for folks that are joining us, this is the first time we've had multiple guests. So if it gets a little rough in the transitions, please forgive us. But Graham, I'm gonna, I think, send you to the ether.
Now.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right, so now it's just me, but I'm going to be joined by our next guest, who is the first person I met when I was working at the Nomad. We're going to bring him in, and I like to make the people I have as guests kind of be on screen when I say nice things about them. So here we have Mr. Noah Friedman. Noah, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, what's going on?
Yeah. Not much, just doing a little broadcast. Actually, we could possibly at this point be doing this together in the same room.
We're pretty close.
We're pretty close. I could be there in about 10 minutes. But so we're both in LA, and you came out here to help open Nomad LA. But I know Noah. I met Noah when I
sorry, my dog.
That? No, it's okay. Who is that?
My dog's name is Pastrami.
Yeah.
She's quite dumb, but she's very cute. So
she's adorable. Yeah.
I've
met her. Right. When your previous roommate got a dog named got a dog, I wanted her to name the dog.
Just to clarify, she stole my dog. She's a horrible person, absolute monster.
Well, we'll see what she has to say later. But I wanted her to name I wanted you to name whoever to name the dog Rye, so we'd have pastrami on Rye when they cuddled. But so be it.
Well, gravy's it's another food name.
Yeah, true. It fits the theme for sure. So I met Noah. So Noah trained me as a kitchen server back when I joined the Nomad, and it was like one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. I don't think I'd ever seen anyone move like that quickly and that surely. And when you're in the Nomad as a guest, it's this like beautiful space that lays out in a very elegant fashion, and the works behind it are also beautiful and by far, I think, the cleanest restaurants, one of the cleanest restaurant spaces I've ever been in. But like the places I'm comparing it to are like per se, like it's just absolutely top tier. And Noah was just leading me through that space at a pace and the complexity. Like if someone had asked me to go back to a spot that we had been in, I could not have retraced my steps. It was such a flurry.
Up and down those steps.
Yeah, and Noah went on to become a bartender and get asked to come and help open Nomad LA, and I guess I kind of answered some of the things for you, but like what else can you tell us just generally about your time at Nomad New York?
I mean, it was super unique. I don't know, I feel weird like just spouting the company line, but like the shit we were able to do was really cool. Like the connections we made with guests. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the library, so I think that's what I think about most. And what we were able to do in the library was just awesome. Really making people's nights, their whole experience. I'd never seen that kind of level of hospitality before, but it was really cool.
Yeah, no, it really was. And, I think even though there's no place like the Nomad, I think when we talk about the restaurant side, a lot of people can imagine something, in the realm of what we did. Though maybe not as awesome as it was, and they can imagine the bar. But can you talk a little bit about what the library experience was like, or what it could be like?
Yeah. I mean, well, it starts off where you come face to face with I guess your next guest, Christine, and she'll either let you in the library or send you away real quick. But then sit down and like you're in this beautiful room, all the books, it smells smart. And then we were just able to have like really in-depth, I don't know, I guess conversations or interactions with guests. And, we could take them to the alley, you could take them, show them the roof. A lot of times we do that, we just had a lot of ways to blow them up. And it was really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. Because it was like, I think, sorry, I got distracted there for a second because I realized that Christine was supposed to be the next guest, but you were on so early, so super punctual that I got confused and brought you on. So Christine, thanks for waiting. She just waved and said it didn't matter. So we're good. But yeah, it was so amazing because you could have such a flexible experience in the library, right? You could come in and have like cocktail. Yeah, like you were saying, I just like totally. Yeah, you could just make it happen. Anyway, so with that, your song is "Every Ghetto, Every City" by Ms. Lauryn Hill from the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and I just have to look at kind of see where the cue is for that one. So just bring it up to right here. So here's a little snippet for folks listening.
Every ghetto, every city, and suburban place I've been make me recall my days in New Jerusalem. Story starts in Hooterville. Grew up next to Ivy Hill when kids were stealing quarter bills for fun.
Such a good song. When that, I'm sure I've listened to the album through, but really listened to it this time. It was lovely.
It's a jam.
Yeah. Why did you pick this one in particular?
Well, so as you guys were talking about, the same songs would come on at the same time every single night. And there were two Lauryn Hill songs that were like 10 minutes apart, maybe. They would always come on at like 8:15. And I remember one night Lauryn Hill actually came in to the library and she sat down on one side of the room and the rest of her crew was on the other side. And all of a sudden the song came on and like real time, just watching her react to hearing her own song and then watch her whole crew just start laughing on the other side. It was a pretty dope experience.
What was her reaction like?
She's like, "Oh, somebody turn this off." Just something like that.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, you've had other interesting celebrity run-ins in the library. Any of them particularly meaningful to you?
Yeah. As you alluded to before, I'm a huge Nas fan. When I was real young, I got a Nas line tattooed in my stomach. And one day Nas came in and I showed him my pasty white stomach with the tattoo on it in the middle of the library. It was extremely awkward for everyone. Great memory though. Have a picture.
Had to be done.
I couldn't live with myself if I passed up that opportunity.
No. Better to not live the life of what ifs. And that's amazing. I mean, I certainly, have no tattoos anywhere to show anyone, so maybe that's my big what if. My parents are listening at home and, probably relieved to hear part of that, but
Wait, you didn't tell them about that tattoo that you got?
Right. Well, Noah, thanks for sharing that story. Thanks for teaching me the ways. I was never as good as you were, but I always tried.
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
But yeah, thanks for being here, man. We're gonna get together soon as things improve. And now I'm gonna send you to the ether and bring in Ms. Christine Gutierrez, where you will float for a while. Thanks for being here, man. All right, so far, Graham Vickers and Noah Friedman. Noah way ahead of his schedule. I remember I learned from Chris Lowther when I was at the Nomad, early is on time is late is unacceptable. So Noah definitely gets the punctuality award for being early, and I get I'm the guest Noah needed to know, but here we go. Ms. Christine Gutierrez joining us live. Uh-oh. And that's how it works. Christine, hello.
Hi. Hello.
Thanks.
How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thanks for joining us from the Rocky Mountains.
Somewhere. Shh.
Ish.
No one needs to know.
Oh,
no one needs to
excuse me. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere that's not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And yeah, so as Noah alluded to, you were at least when we met, you were like the face of the library. Kind of running that door, knowing the regulars. You were the person that I certainly would go to if I like needed to make something special happen for someone in that space. But that's not all you did. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other things that you did at the Nomad?
Yeah, I was director of magic, which meant I ran this tiny little show called The Magician. When we started out, it was just going to be maybe once or twice a week, but we kept on selling out like crazy. And then Jimmy Fallon came on the second day of Friends and Family. He came actually just during intermission. Jimmy Fallon has yet to see the entire show, but he loved it so much from just watching the second act that he mentioned it on the show the next on the Tonight Show the next day, and then fast forward 5+ years, Dan's been on Tonight Show I think 11 times, which is super crazy. And we did the show six times a week, 2 shows a night, 3 days a week. Madness. And then I was in the library. I also opened the Nomad bar. So Graham and I, we go way back. And then I was occasionally in the main dining room as well. So I was all over the space, but it was so much fun. And the magic show was crazy. It was crazy. It was just like this crazy tiny room where we put 76 people and a bunch of chicken truffled popcorn.
The popcorn!
Yes, I know. Which smelled like farts, but like really delicious farts. It was nice.
Interesting tasting now. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was funny. I totally forgot when you described the room and the seats and everything. One of the great kind of privileges that I remember having was they did the Friends and Family, or like kind of even before Friends and Family, the trial run for the magic show with us. Like we got to go and experience that and have the cocktails and have the popcorn. Like the first popcorn was modeled after the chicken dish, and then the second was milk and honey, I think. Yeah. It was just cool, because like that was before I felt comfortable being a guest at the Nomads. It was nice to, participate.
Experience it.
Yeah, for sure. Director of Magic, I feel like you and like professors at Hogwarts get that title. It's not on all of the business cards.
It's a crazy thing to have had on my business card, and I kept a few just for like fun. But I mean, most people don't understand what that means, which is fine. I guess the ambiguity kind of helps. But it's a crazy title. It's definitely, I don't think I'll ever have a cooler title.
I mean, I don't think anyone will have a cooler title. And yeah, the mystery is great when people don't quite know what that is.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So the song that you chose for your drum track was Bayani by Blue Scholars. And so I'm just going to play a little bit of this one from the beginning.
Yeah. Now, turn off your radio, turn up your stereo. Northwest, rock on, what's the scenario? 4 years ago, 2 students skipped in class when they crafted an album. Some call it a classic, but we've grown past it. Was good while it lasted. Now it's time to put the education into practice. Beats, rhymes, rice, be the breakfast of champions. We hold the whole time down together with the plan of...
So good.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, this is another one I didn't know. I mean, I knew who Lauryn Hill was, and I've listened to the album, but this is another one I didn't know at all. So thanks for expanding my horizons. So why was this one for you?
I think, Blue Scholars were pretty integral to my growth, and they're a rare rap duo. So the rapper, the MC, he's Filipino American. The producer, he's Iranian American. They precede Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. Like, they laid the groundwork for Seattle hip hop scene, and then Macklemore and Ryan Lewis just kind of took it and ran and became rich. And I actually interviewed Blue Scholars, and I was like, why aren't you guys super successful? And they were like, it's really hard for studios to sell a Filipino man and an Iranian man to a white mainstream audience. But I think, they talk a lot about like the immigrant struggle and what it's like to be part of the educated working class, but never having the opportunities to sort of financially progress. And it's great. And like, there's this line, beats rhyme rice, be the breakfast of champions. And like, Filipinos eat so much rice. And it's just kind of like, it connects with a part of my story as an immigrant, and I love it. And it's great for like running.
Yeah. No, that's so amazing. Like my friends from the UK who have introduced me to a lot of hip hop from there, right? It's like beats rhyme life. And so beats grime rice is like, yeah, like I get it. Yeah, so interesting. And it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting, like when you're talking about representing like different experiences, right? Like non-mainstream or non-white or experiences like super important. And I think hip hop has become such an important genre for that, right? It's such an amazing way to share stories. And it's, when you were talking about that, it made me think of earlier this year I didn't read it. I listened to a book called The Big Payback, which is all about the business of hip hop, and how in the beginning a lot of the struggles were getting white record executives to realize that people wanted to hear about other experiences and like, Black experiences,
this was
and things like that
too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So super interesting. And anyway, I that you've given me stuff to think about and reflect on, because this was new for me for sure. And actually, I want to ask you about one other thing. So you recently spent some time out of the country. Is that something you want to talk about? Or I'm just kind of curious about what your experience was, because most of us have been here, but no pressure.
Yeah, I went to Oslo from August to December, thinking I would maybe be there for a year, but thinking I could run away from COVID. And like in the summer, it was amazing. I mean, there were at one point only like 9 people in the hospital for COVID in the entire country. And then Norwegians are gratefully very cautious. And so I was really happy that they did take a lot of steps, but restaurants have been closed since November in Oslo with no end in sight. It's really bad. So, but it was a good time for what it was. I'm happy to be back stateside. I got my vaccine, my first shot. I'm pretty pleased about that.
Yeah, congrats.
But if I could take 1 minute to talk about just this one thing that happened at the NoMad.
Please, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I was like, who should I talk about at the NoMad? Harry Belafonte, we all know, he's seen the magic show twice. And on the second time when he came to the show, he that time we had our private little secret bar on the second floor of the hotel. I don't know if you've been there. Have you been there?
I haven't been, but I know about it.
Okay, so essentially we turned an ADA bathroom into a bar. Like, you would never have guessed that it was ever a bathroom. And at that time, the sponsor of the bar was Diplomatico, which is a wonderful rum. And what does Harry Belafonte sing about a lot? Rum. So during that intermission, I took him and his wife, and they had 2 guests, to our little rum room. I played Harry Belafonte music. He drank rum. Dan White, the magician, came down and hung out. And it turns out they were like huge, huge fans of the magic show, to the point that when they had their grandkids and their children over, they all gathered them together so they could watch one of Dan White's segments on The Tonight Show. And it was like drinking rum with Harry Belafonte, the civil rights icon, this musical legend in a private rum room. Like nothing's ever going to get better than that. And what was crazy is that same night at that same show, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner were there. And I had to like seat them as far as from each other as possible because I didn't want them to interact. But it just showed sort of the breadth of people that came through the magic show and how special we could make those moments. I don't think we'll ever get, again, cooler than having Harry Belafonte drinking rum in a bathroom bar.
Which you would never know. That's what it was. Yeah. That's amazing. And, kudos to you because, I think one of the thing, I see our next two guests hanging out down at the bottom of the screen. It was our opportunity to create legendary experiences, for everyone where we could find the opportunity. And what I love about that story is that, you were able to do it, as seamlessly and, with grace and aplomb but with a lot of people would get nervous around someone like Harry Belafonte. Yeah. And, I don't think you do, but even if you do, you channel it into the right place, so that's amazing. I did not know that story.
I'll send you a photo of Harry Belafonte in the bar. It's badass.
Please. Yeah, right on. So, cool.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, Christine, thanks for joining us. I'm going to send you into the ether, and we're going to bring in our next guest, Sammy Cool. So we'll see you, Christine. And yes, next up is Sammy Cool. I'm going to see if I can just figure out how to do this. Yeah, there we go. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alan. It's great to see you.
Oh, great to see you. From an undisclosed location. Yeah, thanks for being with us. It's funny. So for those watching, Sam and I worked together for pretty much my whole time at the Nomad. But what I remember, just some really memorable nights. At least starting off as her assistant server, right? Before I became a server, and just the adventures that ensued. Some might say hijinks. But yeah, so can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of maybe what brought you to the Nomad, what you did while you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I did a little bit of everything. I was kind of every kind of server position you could be at the Nomad. My brother works at 11 Madison Park. So I was at EMP having champagne with a friend from high school who also used to work at EMP, and
as one does, casually having champagne at the best restaurant in the world. Sure.
I was like, cool. And I was incognito, like no one knew who I was. And Billy Peel came over and found out who I was, and then went over to my brother. Billy Peel was the service director at 11 Madison Park at that time, and then ended up being a manager at Nomad with me. But he went over to my brother and was like, Andrew, why isn't your sister working at the Nomad? Like, why isn't your sister working for us? And he's like, I don't know, go ask her. And so he handed me his business card. And then I had a meeting with Camilla, who was the AGM of the Nomad at that time, and became a kitchen server and worked my way up through, became a server in the main dining room so that I could go open the Nomad bar with Christine and Graham. And Graham and I became servers together. Graham trained me as a kitchen server, I think my second day. And I just remember thinking, like, he's so dope. This place is so cool. The attention to detail, like how much everybody cared, like the magic of lineup, like that moment when the manager stands in the middle of the circle of 50 people and just says good evening, and then the echo of good evening from everybody. It's just, there's nothing like it. And it makes you just want to be better.
So much buy-in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So special. Yeah, it was good. It was a special time. And I should say, the fact that everybody, kind of worked with each other is like, so I was there in 2015, basically. And so almost everyone here overlapped in that time period. But I should say, before we get to Sam's song, one of the things I loved about the Nomad is it had just such an amazing warmth to it that I think I know at least as many people who I never worked with at the Nomad, but who worked there through having come in as a guest after the fact. Once I was working with Glenn Fiddick, and I think it's that buy-in. They were like, "Oh, you used to work here, like family, family forever."
Yeah, I'd like go sit at the bar and wouldn't know anybody behind the bar, and then someone like Noah would come in from his break and be like, "Yo," and then would tell the bartenders who I was, and they were like, "Yo, that's so cool," and like then other people would pass through, and sometimes it was other guests sitting at the bar who also used to work at the Nomad but came back, and it was always somewhere I wanted to go back to. And like being in the library, it's just. There's no place like the library. There's no place like the Nomad bar. There's no place like there's just no place like the Nomad.
No, there is no place. And your song, which I'll ask you about in a minute, is Express Yourself by Charles Wright. And I can't see the rest of the name of the band, but it's okay. And this one I didn't realize I knew, but maybe I know it because it was also on the soundtrack at the Nomad. Let's listen to the first little bit of this one. Maybe I know it because it was.
Express yourself. You don't never need help from nobody else.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's like it's just in the brain forever. Because I remember On the Run, I was like, oh, I know this one.
Right.
I got
right.
this. Yeah.
And I honestly hated it. Every time it came on, I was like, this goddamn song, I can't. And it was like either in the early part of the night or like in the middle of the night when I was like running around and frustrated, and I just was like, this song is so annoying. And now I just have the softest spot for it. And like, so I never bartended at the Nomad, like for real. I bartended a couple competitions there, which was like really cool to be behind that bar. But now I bartend, and like my memory of that song is one time as a server, I think it was at the Nomad bar, the pass for the drinks was by a service station, and Guillermo Bravo was a little bit behind or something. So he handed me a couple of twists to garnish an old fashioned, and I went like really hard with the squeeze, and he's like, no dude, like just like express yourself. And I was like so now every time I express a twist over a drink, I think of that moment and I think of this song.
Oh, that's so warm. I thought it was just gonna be like, oh yeah, now it doesn't bother me because like time has passed. But that's amazing. And for those who don't know Guillermo Bravo, who haven't had the pleasure of either working with him or having him as your bartender, he is a big guy who works incredibly fast with incredible attention to detail, but also with a soft touch, I would say.
Very.
And the part of that story that I almost didn't believe is you were saying, Guillermo was a little behind, and I was like, I've never seen that.
Or at least like I happened to be there, and he was like, hey, help me out because I have to get these other drinks. Like something to the effect that he let me express a twist over an old fashioned and was like, easy.
Oh, it's an honor. It's a privilege, for sure. Oh, that's so amazing. Express yourself, express the twist, treat yourself gently, treat the twist gently.
But it's like now it's every time time
right
I express a twist. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last time I saw you express yourself and a twist was at Crown Shy, where I've had the pleasure of having had you as my bartender. And hopefully again, soon, if not there, somewhere else.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, me too. Well, Sammy, thank you for. Oh, wait, can we before we go, can we plug one of your other Instagram handles?
Yeah, absolutely. I run Sammy's Kitchen. It is I have a YouTube cooking show, and I also have a podcast about cake that I'm going to start up again because I couldn't have guests for COVID. So I had to kind of nix it for 2020, but I invite a guest on and I make them their favorite cake. And then we talk about why it's their favorite cake, and we share a piece of cake and talk about them and what they do and stories of cake and nostalgia. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh, Dram Tracks I thought was like a pretty good idea. Certainly one that I enjoy. But cake and indulgence and stories, amazing. I'm gonna lobby for a gluten-free cake episode. Just putting that worm in your ear.
Done.
Sammy, thanks for joining us. Going to send you into the ether and bring in our next guest.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. All right, so here we are. Oh, hold on. There we go. Ms. Ann Sim with the wallpaper. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Oh, exciting for me too. And another LA person here. So I don't think we worked together. I don't think we overlapped.
We didn't. We met in LA, actually. You were grabbing a coffee and I was working a rare AM shift. And you must have great memory because you were just like, hey, are you Ann Sim? Because I believe James Giannatasio was the one who said, hey, keep a lookout for her. And it was just by luck or by fate. And you were the one who had great enough memory to say hi, and it just went on from there.
Yeah. No, that was amazing. And you were also very helpful. I remember when we were launching, time for me to plug, right? When we were launching Grand Cru, I needed the right space to taste a couple of journalists on the whiskey, and some places aren't necessarily going to be as conducive to that. But given what I knew about the Nomad and what I knew about you, I was like, I'm going to ask, right? Like, obviously, if the answer is no, not a big deal. But I thought there was a good chance, and you made that seamless for us. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy, like Glenfiddich, to have like a tasting there, like no problem. And also it just like works out really well because the Nomad LA space is just such a beautiful, sexy space. So you just it's a great place to show off something as great as Glenfiddich and the Grand Cru especially.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, people always say like people won't remember what you said or people won't remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I feel like that's true for the Nomad in general with the hospitality, but also like the beautiful space that it's at least like a 40-foot ceiling, and it's ornate and beautiful from like the 20s, I'm guessing. Really amazing.
Yep, early 1920s, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have like a lot of folks that have been on to who's that who poked his head into the frame right there?
So here's Gravy.
Hi, Gravy.
Who you know fairly well.
I mean, he's very famous on Instagram.
Kinda. We have like 10 followers. It's nothing. We'll get there.
Well, nice to have both of you on. So like a number of the other folks that have been on, you have kind of I'd say like a fairly long history with the Nomad in 11 Madison Park. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of how you progressed through the restaurants and how you came, kind of through Nomad New York and all that?
Yeah, so I started my tenure with Make It Nice Hospitality at 11 Madison Park. And I was there for almost 2 years, or maybe a little bit over 2 years. And that in 2017 was when they were closing down for renovations. And at the same time, to kind of join another project, that's when the Hamptons opened up. And at the same time, that's when I was ending my tenure at 11 Madison Park to move to LA to join the opening team for Nomad Los Angeles. And the agreement that I had with Jeff, the DO at the time, was that I would kind of learn the ropes of what it takes to work in Nomad, what the systems are like, since I've never worked in Nomad before. And EMP has its own strange structure and SOPs. It's like working in a different world there. So I very much needed the time to get to know what it's like to work at Nomad. So while all the rest of my family was out in the Hamptons doing their thing, I stayed in New York to work at Nomad. And it was a very short time. I would say out of everyone, I've probably spent the least amount of time in Nomad New York, but it was a very profound summer for me to meet these people who work very differently, but with the same mindset. So it was a great time, and honestly, like I didn't feel that I had enough of a time to have a story, but it was just such a huge influence on me before my move to LA that it was yeah, and I still have such fond memories about it.
Oh, that's just modesty, you know. You know, clearly it was enough. Yeah, and also the other reason I knew who you were is I remember having seen you at the restaurant, so I had seen you in both places. So it wasn't that I had like a great memory. I just kind of put two and two together that the same person who was at 11 Madison Park or NoMad New York was probably the same person at in LA as well. And so yeah, so your song is "Bright Lights" by Mr. Gary Clark Jr., son of Austin, Texas. And I am going to play a little snippet here. Just cue up the right spot. And there we go.
Just outside of Moses was 54.
So I didn't, it's funny. I did set up a specific moment, but I was like, yeah, we're not promoting, waking up on the floor in places, unless that's like your preferred MO, But yeah, so yeah, can you talk a little bit about why you chose this song in particular?
Simply put, it played in the restaurant a lot. I'm not sure who was in charge of the music at the time, but while I was there, it played a lot. That was just like the first thing that came to my mind. But it's also like, if you've ever been inside of NoMad New York in the restaurant and all the different rooms, it's very sexy. It's very mysterious. It's dark, has like velvet curtains from like ceiling to floor. So that music playing in the song, where it's like this bustling restaurant, dinner service, people are enjoying like a date night or whatever it is. It's also just like a very appropriate song to play in that setting. So it really matches as well. And it's also like upbeat. It's a little bit rock and roll. It's a little bit bluesy, and it has a great energy when you're working working service as well, not just as a guest. So for me, like, even though I would just be in my head, like, again, this song, like, it was also very energizing as well. And also, like, it's very, like, if you go through the lyrics, it's very much like anyone's experience with New York. You know, some of the lyrics, I don't remember off the top of my head, but talks about how you come into this city or go up as one person, you should come down as another person. Talks about that. And, and being in the industry, like, I'm not sure about you, Alan, but I certainly have had times where, like, we've had a rough night or we've had a great night and we go out and we hit the bottle. So, all of that relates in so many different levels. But overall, it's just a great song. And I definitely like felt like it was a proper song that matched the energy of being inside NoMad New York.
Yeah, for sure. No, and yes, I have had that experience. I refer to it as enjoying a dram or two.
Yes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can relate to all of that because, like, no, the energy is so high too. You need to kind of like, decompress and what's the word? Like debrief with your friends. I definitely I had a number of nights at a bar whose name I cannot remember in downtown Brooklyn with Anthony Dow and our friend Joey, just kind of recalibrating a little bit.
Recalibrating, that's a good word for it.
Through a conversation, and a beer or two, it was I can relate. Right on. Well, Anne, thanks for joining us. Appreciate. I'm going to send you into the ether with the other folks who I think are still hanging on. Yeah, thanks so much for being here and doing this and telling us the story of your time at NoMad New York. And I hopefully will be in your neck of the woods before too long.
Thanks. See you soon.
Right. See you soon. So for the first time, I'm going to share a song and tell a little story, which I haven't done before, because I qualify. I came through. I spent a year, and so I had, prior to the Nomad, I had worked at an American whiskey bar and restaurant called Char Number 4 in Brooklyn, and it even ties into the Nomad, because I remember when that restaurant closed, the GM had heard about it and said to me, "Oh, I heard Char Number 4 closed. I'm sorry to hear it." And I said, "Thank you. I'm sorry too." And it meant a lot. That was a restaurant that had really helped form me in a lot of ways. And Noah trained me, and I got a little bit better. And over time, eventually started working as a server. And I remember working breakfast where I was getting up at like 4:30 in the morning and taking the train in with like folks that had been like partying in Brighton Beach, and we're sharing the same train into the city. And worked lunch, eventually dinner, did some private dining. And the thing that's amazing is, like, I remember probably not every, but I remember like so many of the things I did wrong. Right? It's like, I feel like for a lot of us, that kind of thing is like etched into your mind. But for me, I had one service. It was a lunch, and everything went perfectly. It relates to this song, so I'm just going to play a little bit of the song, which is "Land of a Thousand Dances" by Wilson Pickett, and then I'm going to tell the story. So here we go.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Got to know how to hold it. Like on him rolling. Mashed potato. Do the alligator. Put your hand on your hip step. Let your backbone slip.
Did we get there? I'm going to stop it, but there's the chorus is awesome on that one. For those of you who don't know the Muscle Shoals sound, dive in for sure. But I feel like there was a good amount of Wilson Pickett on the playlist. I'm seeing Graham nod, I think, maybe in the bottom, but I'm not sure if he is. But I was definitely listening to a lot of that back then. And there was this one lunch service where we had, it was the James Beard Awards were happening in New York City that week. And I would say that, like, I was in the parlor that day, which is this big room that you share with two other servers at dinner. But at lunch, you might share it with just like one other. And if your section gets full, it's like really full. And you might be in a bit of trouble. And at this lunch with all these famous chefs in town, the chits were flying. So if you haven't worked in hospitality, when a VIP guest comes in or a regular comes in, you get a piece of paper, which is a chit that's going to say who they are, talk about their experiences at the restaurant, and you just then know what's going on. And so, like, they were just being thrown in my hand, probably every 5-10 minutes. And I get one in my hand and I look at it and it says Rene Redzepi, who is the chef of Noma. And I was like, oh, wow, things have been going well. Like, this has been a busy lunch, and amazingly, like, nothing has gone wrong. I haven't made any mistakes. No mistakes have happened elsewhere. It's just been perfect. And I was like, need to keep the train on the rails. And they did. Things went really well. And I remember at that point, once that chef was in the restaurant, the GM came over, was like, "Is there anything you need?" And I so appreciated him not just saying just saying like, like, "What do you need?" And I said, like, "Yeah, I've got 3 things. Here are the 3, and those things happened, and everything went seamlessly. And, the chef of the Nomad, the chef de cuisine, came up and greeted them, and they had their chef moment. But it was just like a great moment where, like, all the dances were happening, everything was happening kind of seamlessly. And, if I ever had a perfect service, it was that one. And it was a positive memory because they weren't all so smooth. That was one of my greatest memories, but really they're all just ones that I cherish because of the people that were that joined us today. For folks that don't know, one of the things that inspired the themes of the Nomad was the music of the Rolling Stones, and there were some amazing photographs of the Stones throughout the restaurant, really only in places that the folks that worked there would see, right? It was kind of a reminder to us that, the restaurant was, did have a Michelin star, but was also supposed to be imbued with a little bit of rock and roll. I think a lot of us wish we could go back and have a drink at the Nomad or have a meal at the Nomad once things open up. But we can't do that right now. And so I'm going to play us out with kind of one of my favorite Rolling Stone covers that I think speaks to this. So here it is.
I saw her today at the reception. A glass of wine in her hand. I knew she was gonna meet her connection. At her feet was her footloose man. And you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need.
Yeah, so just hopefully a pot of gold at the end of the kind of sad rainbow of the closing for now. But just want to say again a huge thank you to my friends that joined us tonight: Graham, Noah, Christine, Sammy, and Anne. Thank you for taking the time, for sharing the stories, for sharing your songs. I can't wait till we're able to enjoy some drinks and food and hospitality together again. So, from LA, signing off. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next time.